Since Bitcoin price has crossed the $20,000 mark, the bull rally we have been experiencing since the beginning of October 2020 has not faltered. On the contrary, it has even intensified. The $20,000 was a real psychological barrier. Once this psychological barrier was overcome, Bitcoin entered uncharted territory. Bitcoin is currently in price discovery mode. Yesterday, December 19, 2020, Bitcoin crossed a new barrier, the $24,000. A new all-time high (ATH) was reached at $24,200. Seeing Bitcoin continue to rise suggests that $25,000 can be reached by the end of 2020. At the very beginning of December 2020, when the Bitcoin price was in roller coaster mode, this was far from obvious. For several days now, many have been thinking that Bitcoin price is going to experience a major correction in its price, as is usually the case after such a bullish rally. It must be said that the Bitcoin price has been rising steadily since the end of September 2020. In a few weeks, the Bitcoin price has risen from $10,000 to $24,000, an increase of plus 140%. Since reaching a new ATH on December 1, 2020, we have witnessed several times attempts by whales to trigger this strong correction that many are waiting for. Just yesterday, when Bitcoin price surpassed $24,000, several sell walls were in its path. In 2 hours, nearly $138 million of shorts were liquidated. Earlier in the week, $1 billion of shorts were liquidated in 2 days. The whales clearly intended to trigger this big correction, but the Bitcoin price has been going through the roof so far. The reason is to be found in institutional investors. Institutional has been buying the slightest drop in the Bitcoin price for several weeks now. Everybody wants Bitcoin on Wall Street, and the current price is not seen as an issue. There is a kind of transfer of BTC between the whales and the institutional investors. The big question is whether the current price level can be sustained until the mass entry of retail investors into the market in 2021. Nothing is less certain, because a correction is still more than likely. The most interesting thing will be to see if the $20,000 will play the role of important support if such a correction in the Bitcoin price were to occur. If the Bitcoin price were to rebound strongly on this $20,000, this would be an excellent signal. It would be a signal that the $20,000 is indeed likely to become a new baseline for the Bitcoin price. If the $20,000 were to fail to play this important supporting role, Bitcoin price could retest the $18,500 and possibly the lower $15,500, $16,000 zone. In any case, one thing is certain: as time goes by, Bitcoin's highs are always higher, while its lows are always higher as well. This shows that the adoption of Bitcoin continues to grow. If Bitcoin's annual low in 2020 was around $3,800, this is due to a special situation with the coronavirus pandemic that triggered a liquidity crisis in March 2020 on a scale not seen in decades. In 2021, I don't see Bitcoin having a low below $10,000. So this trend will continue to accelerate. In the days to come, it will be interesting to see if institutional investors continue to jump on all the BTC that are put on the market. Finally, let's not forget that at the end of January 2021, the employees of American banks will have their annual bonuses. This will probably be the occasion to see even more new money coming into the Bitcoin world. Until then, if a correction occurs, the best attitude to adopt will be the one followed by institutional investors: buy the dip. Success in the Bitcoin world never happens overnight. The secret is to be in dollar cost averaging (DCA) mode. Buying Bitcoin when small corrections occur brings you closer to the big goal for retail investors in the coming months: owning at least one BTC. Some people ask me what they should do when they reach the possession of one full BTC. It is true that the number of addresses on the Bitcoin network owning at least one BTC has exploded in recent months. Once you own one BTC in full, why stop there? Continue your DCA strategy to try to own two BTC. And so on and so forth. Bitcoin is made to protect your wealth from monetary inflation in a way that is resistant to censorship. If you have hard-earned money that you don't use to live on, there is no reason not to keep it safe within the Bitcoin network. It's up to you as always. The whole narrative around Bitcoin has been about its financial investment side for some time now. It's quite logical when you realize that its bull rally that started in the early days of October 2020 was driven by smart money. Institutional investors, big companies, whales, American PayPal users, and billionaires came to buy Bitcoin en masse. This strong demand for Bitcoin has logically caused its price to explode since the supply of Bitcoin is frozen at 21 million units and the issuance of new BTC is currently averaging 900 per day. At the next halving, it will be halved again. Bitcoin's programmatic monetary policy plays a key role in the liquidity crisis that is currently occurring in the Bitcoin world. There are literally not enough BTC to sell on the trading platforms. The Bitcoin price turns the heads of some who forget the true meaning of the Bitcoin revolution. All of these numbers are turning heads. I am also among the culprits since I talk quite often about Bitcoin price. Nevertheless, I am careful to warn that the Bitcoin revolution is about so much more than just financial gain. The purpose of Bitcoin is to return power to you. With Bitcoin, you will be able to live your life on your own terms. This will only be possible if you realize that you must have the private keys associated with your Bitcoins. So you should not fall into the trap that is being created by the traditional financial world, which is selling you Bitcoin simply as the best hedge against monetary inflation. Bitcoin is of course the best hedge against monetary inflation, but it is much more than that. It is only one facet of what Bitcoin offers you. An early Bitcoiner publishes a message that reminds us of what really matters with Bitcoin. An early Bitcoiner, Marty Malmy, has just posted an extremely interesting thread on Twitter. As a reminder, Marty Malmy was in contact with Satoshi Nakamoto in the early days of Bitcoin. Marty Malmy is one of the last to have exchanged by email with Satoshi Nakamoto in spring 2011. As I explained to you recently, 10 years after Satoshi Nakamoto's last public message, the Bitcoin revolution is in good hands. It was to Marty Malmy that Satoshi Nakamoto had asked on that occasion to take full ownership of the Bitcoin.org website. Just after the transfer of this domain name, Satoshi Nakamoto disappeared for good from the surface of the internet, taking with him, or her, the mystery of his, or her identity. Marty Malmy was one of the first miners in the Bitcoin network. So you must think he must be a billionaire by now with a Bitcoin that is worth $23,000. In his tweet, Marty Malmy explains that he had accumulated 55,000 BTC on his laptop between 2009 and 2010. As of December 18, 2020, 55,000 BTC are worth $1,265 million. Bitcoin broke the $20,000 psychological barrier on December 16, 2020. All the questions about whether Bitcoin had really beaten its all-time high, ATH, are now a thing of the past. Now that the $20,000 has been crossed, the floodgates are open for Bitcoin. Bitcoin has been making history every minute since it broke $20,000. The $21,000 was a formality, as was the $22,000. It had been clear for a couple of weeks that once the $20,000 was crossed, Bitcoin would move very quickly to the $22,000 since there was no major resistance. The Bitcoin price is $22,682 at the time of writing. The $23,000 could very well be breached during the day at the pace things are going. While Bitcoin was struggling to break through the $20,000 mark yesterday, it was the announcement by Ruffer Investment of a $744 million purchase of Bitcoin made in November 2020 that gave Bitcoin the momentum to break through the $20,000 mark. Ruffer Investment holds now 45,000 BTC. As a result, buy orders have been pouring in. We were then able to witness a great classic since Coinbase was down with its famous message explaining to its users that the platform was experiencing problems with its infrastructure. For once, Coinbase wasn't alone in its debacle as Binance also experienced scaling problems as Bitcoin crossed the $20,000 mark. It's always surprising that two of the world's largest trading platforms can experience so many technical problems. This represents an increase of plus 100% in 2 months. Investors are increasing their positions in Bitcoin. More and more players come to participate in this meteoric rise in the Bitcoin price. The Chicago Mercantile Exchange, CME, now holds $1.37 billion of these contracts. This is proof, if proof were needed, of the growing interest of institutional investors in Bitcoin. In the coming days, this movement can be expected to intensify. Seeing Bitcoin fetching the $25,000 by the end of 2020 is clearly not a utopia. We are not there yet, of course, but it is the next target in my opinion. The most interesting thing about the current rise in the Bitcoin price is that retail investors haven't even hit the market en masse yet. The finance specialized media are slowly but surely starting to include coverage of Bitcoin in their editions. However, the mainstream media has not yet started to talk about Bitcoin again. The bull run that will take place in 2021 will start with a Bitcoin priced above $20,000. In 2017, when the bull run actually started, the Bitcoin price was below $5,000. The rest you know. The Bitcoin price had quadrupled in a few weeks to reach $20,000. We will experience a similar situation again in 2021 with $20,000 as a baseline. A 4 or 5 times increase in the Bitcoin price is a target more relevant than ever in 2021. The $100,000 is therefore more than ever within reach for Bitcoin given the fundamentals that we can observe now. As a Bitcoiner, your situation is ideal right now. The best thing you can do is to stay strong, continue to hold no matter what. There is currently a liquidity crisis on the trading platform since nobody wants to sell their BTC anymore. Everyone understands how valuable they are. Don't make the mistake of being among the first to give in. In the hours to come, a correction does not seem to be in order. If there is a correction by the end of the month, it is more likely to occur on weekends when order books are generally thinner. The date of December 25, 2020, is also to be remembered since futures and options are about to expire. In case of correction, the best thing to do will be to behave like whales or institutional investors. This clearly means that you should switch to buy the dip mode. Continue to have full confidence in Bitcoin, and you will be among those who will make the most of its revolution. Now that the floodgates are truly open, the best is yet to come. It's up to you to be smart to make the most of Bitcoin.